Our next segment, of course, now focuses our attention to the role of communication in advancing accountable governance through the effective communication of Namibia's 6th National Development Plan, which is NDP 6. National plans, ladies and gentlemen, only become meaningful when citizens understand what they seek to achieve, how priorities will be implemented, who is responsible, and how progress will be measured. This session will explore how communication can translate policy and technical planning into clear public understanding, strengthen citizen participation, and support accountability. It will also challenge communicators to move beyond one-way information sharing and create meaningful feedback between institutions and the communities they serve. It is therefore now my honor, ladies and gentlemen, to please welcome on stage Professor Johan Coetzee to deliver this important presentation. Prof, the floor is yours. Please give him a round of applause.
Good morning. Sorry. Good morning. Thank you for the excellent opportunity to be here. I just want to say we are living in the best of times, and Africa is the continent of the future for many, many reasons. And I say it not just because I feel it in my heart, it's because I know it by my mind as well. So, thank you for this excellent opportunity. First of all, I would like to say that you will see on the program this indicating advancing accounting governance, but my topic is actually democratic values. I would like to talk about accounting, but accounting is something completely different. All I want to say is that if you see off-balance sheet accounting, then you must run away, because there's a reason why liabilities are being hidden in off-balancing accounting. Then secondly, I would like to yesterday admit something. That I've asked yesterday a fictitious question to Mr. Paul Kulu, and the idea was just to demonstrate how easy it is to mislead people. I've referred to a question in terms of the South, in terms of gas, and that I've seen a parliamentary report. There is no gas being drilled in the South, but I've asked it specifically to demonstrate that people should think critically and not believe what they hear. And that's my message for today. Critical thinking is very, very important. You have to verify your own sources. Nobody else is going to do it for you, and that's part of governance. So, Paulo, thank you very much for using yourself as a guinea pig, and please give him a big hand of applause because he handled it excellently. Now, advancing democratic values and governance, accountable governance through open dialogue. I would like to say that governance is actually coming from the word gouverneur. It means to row or to steer a ship. And it's quite suitable for this event, because I also like the sea very much. Right, there's the quick roadmap. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. First of all, I will look at communication, the different sides of communication. I think that's very important. And then we will look at some other aspects that's also important for NDP 6. Because the governance is not just it's not about making policies. But governance is about measuring. I think that's the important thing. If you don't measure something, how do you know that you will achieve it? That's very important. So I will look at the political architecture, permission-based economy, NDP 5, audit and lessons, NDP 6, strategic shift, delivery vehicle, and so on, and some takeaways. Oh, I'm back, sorry. So to start with, Namibia's plan and strategy. Namibia has communication policies and consultation mechanisms. They do not constitute a consistent, effective communication strategy that enables broad participation by all stakeholders. I think that's been said many times already in this conference. It's not new. And there are strengths and there are several challenges. So if you can change the challenge into an opportunity because they are related, then it becomes effective. So this is a cartoon to just demonstrate, are all the stakeholders there? Are all the role players there? What about the CBOs, the private sector? I've heard some comments about the private sector, about some speakers, that the private sector is not always there. You also have to ask the question, why are the private sector not always there? Are the mechanisms there to enable them to be there? Do we use the right mechanisms? Are they consulted in time? Are they informed? Are they listened to? Those type of questions are very important. And then what about the informal sector? The biggest sector in Namibia, informal sector, gives the most people employment and have the biggest contribution to the GDP. These are the people not sitting here today. Probably none of you. Do we listen to them? Communication strengths, several formal mechanisms to promote public participation. Constitution, Article 13, protects freedom of expression. And I think that's the important thing. Very, very important that I and you need to protect the different voice to ensure that your voice will be heard in future, irrespective if you agree with me or not. And that's tolerance, and that's flexibility. Ministries conduct public consultations on major policies and legislation. Yes, NPC consults stakeholders during preparation of NDPs, including NDP 6, that's the case. Parliament invites public submissions on some bills, but not all of them. And that is a big problem. I'm also part of the Economic Policy Research Association, where we look at all policies related to investment. And we have also a website. All the policies that we release are free of charge. We give it free to parliamentarians. It's coming from donors, and we all Namibians, businesses in Namibia. So I encourage you to read these policies, because my experience is that in the business environment, in terms of lecturing, in general, lecturers don't know the policies, the economic policies impacting on investment in this country. And I assume it's also the case for many other policies, because we don't have, even at school level, a reading culture. And that impact on effective communication. Regional councils and local authorities hold community meetings. Government increasingly uses social media, radio, the most important. I often talk on different radio shows, and it's the best medium still in Namibia. Television and newspapers are very important. Websites to communicate, they are very positive indicators as well. The Central Procurement Board of Namibia. Live opening of bids. That's the way to go. Please give the hand of applause. Please set the trend for Namibia. That's what we need. Live interviews for very important positions. That's what we need. Some companies are doing it in the public space. NUST, and I also say UNAM. That's the way to go, so that we can be there, so we can be part of participating and evaluating ourselves if it was fair and reasonable and transparent. So from my own institution, I'm very proud in terms of that as well. Then fish rot, also some of the court cases, we have followed it. That's the way to go. There were even attempts from some judicial, and I won't mention names because that's not my style. I never mention names. For effective communication, never attack a person because you're not going to convince him. You say what's wrong with the system and you propose alternatives, options. Never come with criticism if you don't have an alternative because nobody is going to listen to you. You're going to lose your credibility. You will be seen as negative, and that's it. Despite the variety of mechanisms, several challenges limit effective participation. And I think this has been mentioned already by previous speakers also the day before. No whole of government communication strategy. That is a big problem. We need to work on that. And I hope it featured also in the report. Communication varies significantly between different ministries. That has also been mentioned. Many ministries focus on informing citizens and not engaging them in dialogue. And that's also one of my criticisms of this forum, that I see a change today. People are now allowed to ask many different questions. That's the way to go. You cannot allow people just to ask 2 questions if you have listened for an hour. That's not dialogue. That's only information. It's not participation. Like consultation, like the investment promotion bill, the land bill, NEP, and so on. In the space in where I operate in terms of investment and economics, we often experience over many years late consultations. Sometimes we only find out on Facebook by accident on a Friday. One specific case, I can remember that there is a consultation on the Monday on the investment bill. You cannot do that. I mean, it's ridiculous. You must publish in newspapers or find different forums to inform the people that you should be there. You want them to be there so that you can have their input. That's very, very important. Stakeholders often consulted after the policy decisions have been made. Limited rural outreach, that's another problem. I've also attended previously, and some of our people that I work with in terms of the economic space have said that they've attended forums where you want to raise an issue related to economics investment in order to create jobs. That's the purpose of investment, to create jobs. But then it's been said, the decision has already been made. We are not going to discuss the policies. Now we have to be open, sorry. That's just how it is. Many rural communities depend on radio. I've said that already, you know that, while government communication increasingly relies on online platforms. We sit with that digital divide for quite some time, and it will still continue. How are we going to handle that? We need to create forums and platforms for open dialogue and participation. Talk shows. Namibians want to talk. They are funny people. I've seen the most funny people in this room with so many valuable remarks. And humor is part of dialogue. It's very important so that people can relax. And we need dialogue. It's very important. Internet access remains uneven across Namibia, and that is another big problem. The top one is a big problem. We have a citizens' budget, but we have no pre-budget participation as citizens in the budget. That is a big, big concern. We have to change that. We have to work on that. What is the media? What are you going to do about it? A citizens' budget after it's been approved at Parliament is not good enough. Access to the Information Bill 2022 been passed with talking about information here, talking about communication, to guarantee the right of people to have access to information, to public information in ministries. Why are we waiting 4 years now? And why is it not an issue? It affects effective communication directly, even in this room. And it creates policy uncertainty from an investment economic perspective. Whistleblower Protection Act passed in 2017 already, almost 10 years, not implemented yet. Why is it the issue? It creates investment and policy uncertainty for domestic investors as well as outside. It's a big problem. Limited investigative journalism because the market is very small. I know you try your best. I've also been for a short while in the media industry. I've published myself more than 184 newspapers articles, so I've maybe some, I like the media space of excitement, and but I'm not running after or not chasing stories in general, but focus on specific topics of systems, how to improve it for better governance. Very limited reporting on trends, because I know it's not sensation, it doesn't sell. Positive trends of the last 100 years, last 10 years, it doesn't sell. But I think we need, in terms of investigative journalism, we need to start focusing more on that. Policy participation events are often ad hoc, and I've mentioned that already. But just look at that, the Investment Promotion Bill, for 10 years, what do you think will an investor think? If for 10 years they are waiting about certainty in terms of investment, you're sitting with $1 billion in US dollars or Namibian dollars. They go to another country, as simple as that. We need to think about the impact of that on NDP 6. The Data Protection Bill, there's no Comprehensive Data Protection Act in force yet. Now that is also coming a long way. In June 2026, the Minister gives notice in Parliament of a Data Protection Bill, Data Protection Supervisory Authority, and a Commissioner will be created. It will regulate the government and private organization use, the storage and sharing of personal information. It's directly related to your information as well. It protects individuals' privacy rights, very, very important. Regulate cross-border data transfers and data sovereignty, and introduce penalties for non-compliance. Until such a law is enacted, privacy protection in Namibia relies mainly on Article 13 of the Namibian Constitution, which protects the right to privacy. And that's also my right to criticize and to come up with alternative solutions as an academic. Sector-specific laws and regulations, common law principles, and I'm a big fan of common law. I think that's the way to go, because common law is coming directly from the people of any country, and that's why in common law, titles are unimportant. And I think that's how it should be. We are sometimes too much concerned about titles. What is wrong with that? Because it distorts. You cannot relate to somebody if you know I'm a professor or a doctor, because maybe you think he knows so much that I cannot talk to him, and that's what I don't want. So I never introduce myself with any title whatsoever, because I want to make that connection with the person. It's a distortion. We should go back to the common law principles of forgetting about titles. I think that's my perspective. Not a single comprehensive data protection framework. Given Namibia's expansion of digital services, e-government, there we can still go do a lot. We can look at Estonia. Very good example in terms of that, Estonia. Also Australia, electronic IDs, for me that is a big concern, because the Access to Information Bill has not been passed, and the and that it can be abused in terms of the Cybercrime Act and the rights, and I will come to that, of the individual person. Increasing use of personal data. Many legal and technology experts consider a comprehensive data protection act to be an important gap that the proposed bill should address. The Cybercrime Act, an important step in strengthening cybersecurity and combating crime. As many first-generation cybercrime laws, it has several key challenges. It focuses mainly on cybercrime and not data privacy. Your privacy. And you use many different platforms. That's not guaranteed. Act criminalizes of offenses such as hacking, cyber fraud, identity theft. That happened with me as well. Identity theft. It is not funny. You know, if somebody took, you don't even know where that person get it, but it happened. Yeah. And unlawful interception of data. It does not provide comprehensive protection for personal data or regulate how organizations process personal information. This is why a separate data protection act is still needed. Limited regulation of artificial intelligence, and no court interdict needed for monitoring private informational platforms. The police can decide, without a court interdict now, since the introduction of the Cybercrime Act, to spy on you. And that can happen on instruction of politicians if they see you as a person that's making statements that could be perceived as not positive. You will not even know that. And that's why the Cybercrime Act is unofficially also known in some circles as the Spy Act. That is a concern, and I don't know why the media is not concerned about that. Because it is a privacy concern. It's inflicting directly on our privacy. And we as Namibians, we are silent on that. The Act was not designed to address emerging risks such as deep fakes, AI-generated fraud, algorithm bias, or autonomous cyber attacks. Effective enforcement requires specialized investigators, digital forensic experts, prosecutors, and judges. Namibia faces shortages of these specialized skills in the forensic fraud space, where Mr. Becker is operating. Cross-border enforcement challenges. Many cybercrimes originate outside Namibia. I mean, no borders. There's no borders for cybercrime, as you know far better than me. Investigating and prosecuting offenders depends on international cooperation. And that's the problem we have seen with fish rot. You remember the whole story about fish rot, still not been solved yet. Same with the problem with the SME bank. How was it possible? It could happen, you know, if we have regulators in that space. How is it possible? You can decide for yourself. Cross-border enforcement challenges, rapid technological change. The Act primarily creates criminal offenses, does not establish comprehensive cybersecurity standards. And some of the European legislation are far better in terms of that. That I think is the best example. I can't remember the exact act now, but you can Google it. The European, it's regarded as the standard in the world. And I don't know why we have not adopted that, or at least some parts of that. Limited protection of critical infrastructure, cyber attacks on essential services is a problem, and then public awareness. Citizens and small businesses remain unaware of cyber risks and reporting procedures, reducing the Act's effectiveness. More about the Cybercrime Act. It provides a solid basis for investigating and prosecuting cyber offenses. So it's not just negative. It provides a foundation, but let's improve and build on it. On its own, it's not sufficient. It provides opportunity as an early warning system to spy on somebody for political correctness. It's possible. And I'm not saying it happened, but the opportunity is there. And if the opportunity is there, but the probability is there, and it can happen and it will happen in future. That's just human nature. It should be complemented by comprehensive data protection legislation, stronger institutional capacity, and broader cybercrime governance to support Namibia's digital transformation. The Communication Act Namibia provides the legal framework for telecommunications, broadcasting, postal services, and regulation by CRAN as the regulator. The Act has strengthened the communications sector, although it has several challenges, like the digital divide, as we have talked about, and it will still remain for quite some time. And what are we going to do about it? That's the question. From this forum, and what are we going to do about that? It's a serious problem, because we want to inform people and that they can participate. And we don't have that reading culture and participation culture in Namibia, especially people in rural areas that are not empowered enough to speak up and to write. How do we hear their voices? They are the government, they are the people, it's us. Many rural, I've mentioned that. And my question was just about Starlink. We know what is happening, and I don't want to talk about that, but I've read all the different cases that's been reported, and there was only 2 cases that's been regarded as merit out of more than 622, I think. High connectivity costs reduce access for low-income households. Limited emphasis on government communication. The Act focuses mainly on regulating communications infrastructure and service providers rather than setting standards. That's what we need. For government communication with citizens, we need standards for that. I think it's important. I'm also sitting on the complaints committee of the Media Ombudsman. It's very interesting from that point of view that we need these type of standards. It does not establish comprehensive requirements for transparent, timely, there's a mistake, or citizen-centered public communication. Affordability challenges, although competition is enforced, data and broadband costs remain relatively high for many Namibians, unaffordable. And unfortunately, we have 2 big public players in the space and another private player. Luckily, we have a number of players, but I think we can improve on that. We need more competition. Unequal access, persons with disabilities, elderly persons, and people living in remote areas may still face barriers to access communication services, limited provision for digital inclusion. I think the rest is some of that I've mentioned already. New technologies, the last one, as artificial intelligence, social media platforms, and digital content regulation have developed much faster. That's the problem. Technology develops so fast that we can't keep up in terms of legislation. So sometimes things are legal, but they are not necessarily lawful. And there's a difference between being legal and lawful. And to be lawful is much better than to be legal. You can Google about that. And there are also a number of regulating gaps. While Namibia has enacted separate cybercrime legislation, coordination between communication, regulation, cyber security, and data protection remains an evolving era, as you have heard before. We need resilient communication systems. There are limited legal obligations requiring government institutions to use communication technologies to actively engage with citizens in policy making and decision making. And remember, governance is mainly decision making. How we make decisions, when do we make it, why we have made it, how will we measure it, have we implemented, why have we not implemented, and what are we going to do about it. That's governance, in essence. Limitations, unequal access to government information, reduced citizen participation in democratic processes still, slower dissemination of public information during emergencies, and I think that was all alluded also previously yesterday, and that's why some media houses have done something in COVID to come to the rescue in terms of that. Information inequality between urban and rural areas, communities, is also another problem. And how and what are we going to do about that? Reduce transparency and accountability where communication practices are inconsistent. And we have heard yesterday many times that word from many experts where they say it should be consistent. Very important. From a governance and public administration perspective, I conclude that the Communications Act is primarily a sector regulation law and not a comprehensive public communication network. We need to fill the gaps. What are the gaps? Let's draft that report, those that's going to be part of that, identify the gaps and how we're going to fill the spaces based on this conference. Achieving effective communication depends on complementary legislation, policies, and government communication strategies, the whole bunch all together. A whole of government approach. Then we also have Electronic Transactions Act, the Data Protection Act, the Cybercrime Act, Access to Information Act with access to information measures and guarantees. And nobody on this conference have even mentioned the Whistleblower Protection Act, for example, with stipulated penalties. And even before the Act has been implemented, I just wanted to say we have advised government many times that a minister should not have the discretion to decide on what should be the reward for blowing the whistle. It should be stipulated in the Act. It's been left at the discretion of a minister at the moment when the Act has been implemented. And there are better examples in Namibia for that, or in the world. Electronic Transaction Act provides the legal framework for conducting business. I'm not going to bore you with all the other advantages. There are some huge advantages to that. You can now sign documents digitally. I do that also. Save me a hell of a lot of time. Thanks for that. And the space has changed, and we don't always use it. Sometimes we still use the old manual system, and we can save ourselves a lot of time. Parts of the Act, including consumer protection chapter, are still not in force. Cybersecurity threats, some people have mentioned yesterday about a minister that have also been defrauded. And there's not just one minister, there are more than one, for example. So it can happen with anybody. Anybody it can happen, especially old people that are vulnerable. We need to protect them as well. Digital literacy is still developing. Cross-border enforcement can be difficult, and it's good that the Vice President of Botswana was yesterday also here. We need the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement to make this happen. Very, very important. The first one I've mentioned already, online banking transactions, electronic invoices and receipts is now all being accepted legally as legal documents. The Act was passed in 2019. Most provisions commenced in 2020, but the Chapter 4, the consumer protection, has still not commenced. There is still a big gap to work on. The rest you can you read faster and better than me. Then communication international best practices. An effective government communication strategy should include early stakeholder mapping. I think some of you have also talked about that. Clear communication objectives, plain language communication in multiple local languages. That have also been mentioned, I think, yesterday by some speakers. I think Mr. Kolu mentioned that and some other speakers as well. Continuous engagement through the policy development, digital participation platforms, regular public reporting on how stakeholder input affected decisions. That have also been mentioned. And then monitoring and evaluation of communication effectiveness. Yesterday also we have seen that media monitoring and how effective it can be. And there are digital experts here in this conference room, they can consult on that. Communication overall assessments, areas of assessment, applying OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, good governance principles. Namibia would likely be rated as follows. The rating is myself, from my own perspective. Transparency, moderate. Public consultation, moderate. And you can see the citizen participation, moderate to weak. Two-way communication, weak to moderate. So we are doing just moderate. But who wants to be moderate? I mean, Namibians don't want to be moderate. We want to be the best, don't you think? So let's do about something and change it, man. Oh, sorry. Okay. Overall, Namibia has the institutional foundations for the participatory governance, but we are not there yet. However, implementation is uneven. Government communication is still more information-driven than participation-driven. That is a message that I've heard many times in this room over the last few days. Moving toward a coordinated whole-of-government communication and citizen engagement strategy would strengthen transparency, accountability, and public trust with supporting governance objectives of NDP 6. And there are many good examples of whole-of-government approaches, as I've said already, Estonia, Singapore, and other countries from which we can learn. Okay, leaving the communication policies and plans and strategies and challenge opportunities, let's focus on some other area. But first of all, I would like to say, since we focus on NDP 6, there are two pillars in NDP 5 that have been least achieved. And the one is why I'm here today. That's good governance. The good governance pillar of NDP 5 has been the least achieved. If you Google Perplexity, I use Perplexity AI tool because it's a chatbot and it's a search engine. It will tell you that in terms of good governance, NDP 5, we have more or less approximately 43% achieved. For the economic indicator, I think it was 45%. These are the two least achieved pillars. And what are we going to do about it? Because this is not a prize giving. This is focusing on the gaps and the limitations and why can we improve it. So, if we look at the economic indicator, you see the graphs, and in terms of the number of countries in the world, about 187, sometimes it differs. Namibia's ranking have decreased. Now, the only point I would like to make here is, in terms of GDP in the world, is that we are very, very small. We need investment. Why do we need investment? Let me ask you this question first. What do you think the people of Namibia think is the biggest problem? What do you think the people of Namibia is the biggest problem in this country at this moment? Anybody? Unemployment, exactly. I will show you later statistics. from an Afrobarometer survey, scientifically well done, 95% confidence level plus minus 3% error level. You cannot criticize it from that point of view. The biggest problem by 73% is unemployment. This is the economic structure of Namibia. I will not spend much time on it because the moderator said I only have 5 minutes. But just to show you where are the focus area and where is the money coming from. What is the biggest areas in terms of the sector? Economic and social fiscal public sector. In terms of South Africa, we are only 3% of the GDP of South Africa. What is the message there? Not because they are 3%. We are so small, we need money. The investment coming from the rest of Africa, for Africans, only 14%. The rest are coming outside Africa. So it's critical. There are other figures you can look at. I will not spend time on it. Gross fixed capital formation. This is probably the most important indicator for economic growth and development and creating jobs in Namibia. This figure. This, what you see on that board. And you can see on the right-hand side how important it is in terms of government spending, economic freedom, fiscal health, and so on. It gives you some perspective, where are we going? We are quite moderate and not really improving. Now, in terms of this, in order to lift our economic growth for increased employment, it means that we need actually a gross fixed capital formation of between 30 and 35%. We are standing at 23%. Rwanda is in that barrier, 30 to 35%. And that's what we need to do. Our neighbor is doing the right thing. And we can learn from them. Yeah, just some of the same numbers. I'm not going into the detail of the multiplier effect and explain that, but that's very important. Investment structure, public-private enterprises or state-owned enterprises, the old name, and government. You can see there the contribution of the different sector. The government is, the contribution is actually becoming smaller because of fiscal constraints. We don't have a lot of movement capability there. And then it's mostly coming from the private sector. So the private sector must be involved in policy. We must create mechanisms for them so they can participate. They are important. They are the engine of growth in this country, not the government. The government is spending money. They are not generating money. That's the big difference. Investment, private, non-mining. You can quickly see that privates as a percentage of GDP, the difference, also very important, the gap at the end there on the right-hand side. Debt as a percentage of GDP, this is not that important because you can just roll over your debt. Japan is also sitting with a debt to GDP ratio of more than 200%. This is not really important. Political architecture, we are sitting with a systemically vulnerability in Namibia. And the problem is that given our quota system, members of parliament are they're not really accountable to the people because of the quota system. Their progress is within a political party. And the effect of that is they are more concerned about what the 100 and the Politburo think of them than the actual voters. And that have a big impact on the communication, and effective communication in Namibia. And then also the executive, 1/3 of them sitting in parliament. They are not really independent as we think. It have an impact on effective communication in this country. There are some examples of what I call the permission-based economy, where we see more and more the state of the government, not the same, but the government also participating in the economy and reducing the competition. And there are some examples of that. And the problem with that is it is an increasing trend. And the media need to be aware about the implications of that. It reduces competition in already a small economy where we are capital constrained, and it will have serious impact in future as a result of that. Some of that I've also mentioned already. And yeah, I will skip that slide. There are some of the other trends, very important ones. I would like to focus on the next slide as well. This is a very important slide. We have talked about trust many times, and you will see most all of them is the darker one. Let's look at the National Assembly. Most of all of them, you see that it's almost 40%, just a little bit, 35%. And then some of them, if you combine the two of them from the National Assembly, it means 45%, 46% of the members of the parliament are not being trusted. Now this is a democratic problem. It's a legitimate problem. It means they don't really represent the will of the people of this country. And look at the other. There are some even 52% combined that don't trust these institutions. This is critical issues. It's questions of legitimacy, democracy. My focus is not just governance, but also corruption. Look at the Transparency International trend. These are the data. We are not improving. We have all these whistleblowers, watchdogs, but why are we not improving? What are we going to do about it? Level of corruption in Namibia, this is what people think as a result of the Afrobarometer survey. And you see, we have a serious problem. That's all I can say. The NDP 5 audit, I am not going to skip to that one. These are some of the pillars: 3 not achieved, 2 moderately, and 1 good. Overall, NDP 5 about less than 60%, I would say, achieved, although there is no specific percentage from government side to tell us what is the measurement in terms of the achievement of NDP 5. What are we going to do about it? And what are you going to report about NDP 6 if these pillars are not being measured?
Prof, just a reminder that you have a minute to the clock.
Thank you very much. NDP 6 challenges. We are dealing with a number of problems, policy problems, private property rights, very important. I would skip over these. These are not that important at the moment. It all says that we don't have a lot of fiscal maneuverability. NDP 6 indicators and status, public trust is mediocre. We have seen it from that slide, the Afrobarometer survey. And I would quickly want to talk about the regulators. The model of regulation in Namibia is not good governance, because we have regulators that make the policy. They provide the end customer with products. They also supply the product at the same time. It means they are compromised. And if you are compromised, you cannot be an effective communicator. And I've mentioned it yesterday just from one specific regulator, and I'm not going to repeat the name, because I don't want to pick on specific ones, but there are so many you can think about. This is the slide I would like to focus on at least. Look at the policy uncertainty index of Namibia and where we are in terms of 2025. see there on the right-hand side, policy uncertainty in Namibia is increasing. Most of you probably haven't seen this. What are we going to do about it? Why is it important? If people are uncertain, they will not invest in a country. Even domestic investors will think twice. That is the impact, that's the problem. We need to do something about that.
Thank you so much, Prof. We have unfortunately come to the end of your presentation. I know that you had a lot of slides and valuable information that you really wanted to run through with us. I want to encourage the delegation, of course, in the room to please make time to engage Prof during the tea break, but also really just to share with us that this presentation and the slides will be made available to all delegates. So you're more than welcome to, of course, receive those presentations or slides. Ladies and gentlemen, please once again give another round of applause to Prof. Coetzee